This is Side Door, a podcast from the Smithsonian with support from PRX. I'm Lizzie Peabody. Patty Storms and Morty Bakar are really proud of their backyard. There's a vegetable garden, shade trees, bushes for pollinators.
We also love to make sure that something is blooming at all times and to create a lot of texture.
I went to see their garden for myself on a rainy summer afternoon. We stood on their screened-in porch, looking out on the centerpiece of the yard, a jacuzzi-sized pond. There's a little rock waterfall and a stream.
We have birds bathing in the stream and, the frogs and now the fish.
Snapping turtles.
Their garden has won awards. It was featured in the 2021 Lewis, Delaware Garden Tour, a big deal in this little coastal community. And the people who went on that tour got a chance to see Patty and Morty's prized fish, 30 of them, including 2 large koi fish, both rescues.
We became very attached to the fish. And it sounds funny to some, I'm sure, but they have personalities. There were some that would come quicker or do funny things when we arrived. And so you really got to know them, and we felt that they were really part of the family.
One morning, just like any other morning, Morty poured himself a cup of coffee, slid open the back door, and walked into his garden. But as he gazed out onto his little backyard oasis, he noticed something different, something strange.
I saw some colored objects, few of them, on the stepping stone and on the patio.
As Morty got closer, he saw what they were.
There were heads, big heads.
Both koi fish heads, and a dozen or so other smaller fish pieces, just lying there, evidently torn apart by something.
I was devastated, I love animals.
What could have done this?
It was at night, so I knew it's not blue heron. Fox don't do that. Raccoons don't like to get in the water. So I read everything about it, and I just was at a loss.
Morty was determined to put an end to the fish massacre. So he put a big net over the pond, weighted it down on all sides with heavy rocks, and he set up motion-sensing cameras aimed at the water. Satisfied with his work, he dusted off his hands and went to sleep.
So the next morning, the net was pulled aside and had a hole in one side and a bunch of heads. So now...
More fish heads.
More fish heads.
By now, 2/3 of the fish were gone, including their favorites. Morty and Patty needed eyes on a culprit. They pulled out the SD card, loaded it into the computer, and there on the screen...
Nothing on the film.
Nothing on the film.
Really?
No.
And the camera captured the whole thing, right? So
it was just
so
darkness.
I said, whatever that is, it's very stealthy.
What the heck was this thing? Or things? Patty and Morty were stumped. So they set up another camera that would take a snapshot every 20 seconds, all night long. The next morning, they woke up.
The fish were gone, all of them. One of them left.
But this time, when they looked back at the previous night's footage...
Black, sleek head just popped up for a second, and then it was gone. And there was no doubt what it was.
Staring back at them, with its tiny eyes and a button nose, was an otter. A North American river otter, to be precise. It must have made its way up from a nearby canal. Morty was furious, but Patty...
One of my favorite animals has always been otters. So once Morty sort of overcame some of his sadness, I said to him, "We have an otter! How cool is that?"
The North American river otter is making a comeback, popping its head up in areas where it hasn't been seen in decades, and receiving mixed fanfare. This time on Side Door, we are hot on the trail of the river otter, one of the most elusive critters in the country. Why do we know so little about these animals, even though they play a major role in our waterway ecosystems? And we explore how these ferociously adorable predators might hold a key to understanding our impact on the environment. It's everything you oughter know about otters. After the break. There is nothing funny about otter research.
Okay, I'm actually going to have to walk around you because I need a little bit more space to do this properly.
You're going to do the poop dance for us?
Yeah.
Okay, so there might be a few things funny about otter research. Like when the head of the Coastal Disease Ecology Lab at the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center showed us the otters' poop dance. It's something they do right before they mark their territory. And I have to say, Katrina Lohan really nailed the performance.
So imagine that my feet are down on four legs.
Katrina stomps her back feet.
They kind of just like stomp, 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 and they do a little wiggle, and then they squat.
It's kind of like when you see a dog walk in a circle and you know it's about to lie down. This is like that, but it's sort of a pre-poop ritual. Do they make noises when they do the dance?
So we occasionally hear them farting on the cameras, but we don't hear a specific vocalization like every time they perform the poop dance.
Okay, it's not a song and dance.
It is not a song and dance. No, it's not like otter karaoke here.
I'm at the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center, what we call CERC for short. It's on the Road River, right as it empties into the Chesapeake Bay, about an hour outside D.C. Now, notably, the otters here at CERC are river otters, not to be confused with the infamously cute sea otters. You know, the ones you see all over stickers and notebooks, pillows, and they're usually doing something adorable, like forming a heart with their bodies or floating on their back smiling, holding hands with their fluffy little faces. I mean, sea otters literally stop traffic with their cuteness in the film Finding Dory.
You have to stop traffic, cuddle party!
River otters, on the other hand, are known for, well, all I can say is I will forever associate them with the poop dance, and now you probably will too. The fact is, river otters might not have much of a public reputation because they're incredibly hard to spot, despite the fact that historically, they've lived in nearly every body of water in America, including the Chesapeake Bay. But otters either completely or nearly disappeared in about half of all states over the past 2 centuries, the result of humans encroaching on their habitat and hunting them for their pelts.
But in conversations we've all had with people who have been in these areas for years or their entire lives, it seems pretty clear that we are seeing more activity throughout the Chesapeake Bay in these last years than we had in previous decades.
This is Alejandra Morales Picard, a psychologist at Montgomery College who's working with Katrina to research otters in the Chesapeake Bay. She says it appears that otters aren't just popping up here, but in places all over the country.
It's hard to know whether some of that is being driven by the fact that there's just more people in these coastal environments and more people with cameras.
It's hard to know for sure because
to do observations on wild otters is, I don't want to say impossible, but it is extremely difficult.
That's because wild otters are nocturnal, they can live on land or in the water, and in both fresh or salt water. I mean, Katrina Lohan studies otters for a living.
And the only ones I have actually seen are the ones at the National Zoo.
So how do you study wild otters without ever seeing them? Until a few years ago, researching otters at CERC would have been otter the question, because nobody knew there were otters around here at all. And then in 2018, one of Katrina's colleagues was walking along the boat docks when she came across a strange-looking splatter. It looked like a massive bird poop full of sequins. And when she got closer, she saw the sequins were actually fish scales.
I could see how you would not necessarily recognize their poop splats as being poop, because I think for a lot of us, we have an image of wildlife poop that kind of looks like fox or dog poop that has this like log-like shape, rather than this like weird splat that is what the river otters leave behind.
Looking closer at this weird splat, Karen's coworker noticed something besides the fish scales and gunk.
She found these bright red worms in the poop.
Parasites. And that is Katrina Lohan's jam. As a disease ecologist, she was very interested in the kinds of parasites that otters might be carrying around, because those parasites could teach us more about the diseases living in our bays, rivers, and other waterways. Think about it. Modern humans go to great lengths to separate our bathroom duties from the rest of our daily habits. We wash our hands, take showers, our toilet has its own special room. We do all of this to prevent spreading germs and parasites. Otters, well, they have a different style.
They like to have poop parties. They socialize and let themselves be known to other members of the population who live in the same area.
Otters are like, hey, smells like Gabby's having a poop party. Maybe we should drop in. And the place where otters host these poop parties is called their latrine, which is not just their bathroom/dance hall.
They will also eat at their latrines. They will also play in their latrines, and they will even mate in their latrines.
Why? Why?
This is a great question that I cannot answer for you.
We don't know why otters choose to boogie, play, eat, and mate in their latrines. But this makes otter latrines a treasure trove for Katrina's research. These little poop lovers are teeming with parasites, and their poop is like a shortcut for learning what sort of diseases might be in a specific area, like the Chesapeake.
Because they can become infected with some of the same parasites as people, we can learn about what parasites are present in an area from the otters rather than from, having to survey the human population in that area.
Once Katrina learned that otters were turning a Smithsonian dock into a latrine, she jumped out of her seat to get studying them. A camera on the dock captured hours and hours of footage. Otters eating fish, wrestling with each other.
What we call romping, which is them playing with each other. It looks similar to how dogs would play together.
But the cameras also caught some surprising interactions between otters and other animals, like this one guest star.
So here we have an otter that pulls up what we believe to be a shad, which is a very large fish, and it is a very large fish.
Alejandra Picard shows me the footage from one of these night cameras at Cirque. The time code says it's a little before midnight. The otter's all alone on the dock, noshing on this fish.
The otter basically has its grips on the fish as it's consuming it. And you can hear something in the background, and here comes the raccoon. Raccoon approaches the otter so fast, the otter jumps into the water, and the raccoon runs away with the fish. And he's the fish is so big, he's waddling away as fast as he can.
Trundling, trundle, trundle, trundle. Otters versus raccoons, a rivalry on the docks. But Alejandra has another word for it.
Kleptoparasitism.
Kleptoparasitism?
Yes, it's thievery so one animal attains a prey item or, source of food, and then another animal steals it.
Yes, raccoons are known as nature's bandits, but this audacious thievery boggled Alejandra's mind. Otters are apex predators, top of the food web in the Chesapeake Bay. Raccoons are scavengers, and this is quite a risk for a meal. Take this second video Alejandra showed me, where the otter arches its back, bares its teeth, and screams at the raccoon. The raccoon turns tail and jets out of there as fast as it can, fishless, which is exactly what I would have done. But there's one final video, and it's really special.
This is everybody's favorite. It's fantastic.
There are two otters in this video. One is sitting right in front of the camera, chomping on a big, fat fish. You can hear it crunching the fish bones.
Seems perfectly content. The one in the background sees that raccoon coming. He's looking around the corner. He's like, something's going on. And he's going to bolt, and there he goes right into the water as the raccoon is charging.
Here comes the raccoon. But the raccoon doesn't go for the fish. It runs to the back of the otter.
And deliberately, sort of intentionally, seems to reach out that paw to grab the otter in the rear end, essentially.
The raccoon spanks the otter.
That causes the otter to spin around, obviously in surprise. If anybody comes behind you and grabs you on the rear end, you're going to turn around. So
that would be surprising.
Right? So he lets go of the fish as he spins around, and it all happens so rapidly.
And the daring raccoon dashes into the night, fish in mouth. Alejandra was shocked. Was this raccoon just sitting at the end of the dock thinking, maybe tonight I'll try the spank and snatch maneuver?
I just kept thinking, is this intentional? Is this really intentional? I mean, it seems intentional.
It's still unclear if this is an actual strategy by the raccoon. But these interactions can teach us a few things about the otter's role in the larger ecosystem, because raccoons wouldn't normally be eating fish.
Because naturally, it doesn't seem likely anyway, that these raccoons would have access to these massive shad fish if it wasn't for the activity of the otters bringing them onto the dock and actually consuming them there.
These interactions are just one of many things Alejandra and Katrina are keeping an eye on as otters return to the area. But to better understand these elusive little creatures, they're studying another group of otters, the ones at the Smithsonian's National Zoo. Still ahead, we see some otters up close and personal, and we try to figure out why everyone thinks otters are so cute and cuddly when they are clearly ferocious and unhygienic. We'll have more on that after the break. In 1928, the anthropologist Margaret Mead published Coming of Age in Samoa, propelling her to global fame and challenging Americans to rethink the nature of adolescence. But decades later, a media frenzy erupted. Were Mead's findings in Samoa and her insights about being human all wrong? The newest season of Sapiens, The Problem with Coming of Age, is a journey of discovery about Margaret Mead's epic life and the complicated legacy she left behind in Samoa. Listen to Sapiens wherever you get your podcasts. Seeing an otter in the wild is rare, like really rare. But there's a place where you can see river otters practically any time of day. The Smithsonian's National Zoo.
So they can be a little bit neophobic and scared of new things. So I'm gonna go in real quick by myself, get them in, and then I'll bring you guys in. Because if they see you with all the scary equipment, they might decide not to come inside.
Rebecca Sterniolo is assistant curator of the American Trail at the zoo.
Hey boys, you ready to come in? Hey, come on, let's go.
She let us crash an otter snack time to get to know the two otters that call the zoo home, Emmett, the dad, and Potomac, the son. And they are really fun to watch.
I don't think I've ever seen an animal move quite like this. You know, they're very cat-like in their movements.
Yeah, kind of slinky and...
Yeah, they're very cat-like, except it's like a cat mixed with a seal.
Yeah. Long bodies.
Yeah. And those tails.
Fluid movements. You go over.
Their tails are so swishy. They move like they're always underwater.
Like a cat mixed with a seal that runs like a bear and a long swishy tail.
This is Potomac here.
Oh my gosh, look at his little teeth.
So you can hold the microphone up there and kind of hear him like, oh, what's that?
That's the sound of Potomac chomping on a raw hunk of meat. Because zookeepers keep a well-documented log of what Emmett and Potomac are eating. That can serve as a control group for Katrina and Alejandra's research.
And I can tell Katrina, hey, on Monday, they had meat and crayfish, so their poops on Tuesday should reflect that.
Yes, they are comparing wild and captive poop. But they're also using cameras to watch how Potomac and Emmett spend their day.
We have a captive audience of otters here, and we know that they're going to be active in the yard, so it's very easy for us to collect data on them because we can always see them. We always know exactly where they're going to be, and we have the ability to record them 24 hours a day if we want.
Katrina and Alejandra are using this camera footage to learn about otter behavior, like where they prefer to make their latrines. Their outdoor yard has a little river sluice, a little wooded area, and a pool where visitors can watch them swim and play.
Our otters right now, their latrine site is in the pool, which makes more of a mess for us. Sometimes they'll have them over in that gravelly area, but they tend to always go in the same site for at least a week or two before they decide to do it someplace else.
But we're hanging out with Emmett and Potomac in their indoor enclosure. It's where they come to escape bad weather or get a physical exam.
Potomac, stand. Can you stand? Good.
Oh my gosh.
That's just his cutest behavior.
And that chirping noise you hear in the background, that's Potomac.
It kind of sounds like a bird chirping. I don't think you would expect that to come from this animal. Like a squeak toy.
That's another reason why Katrina and Alejandra are observing Emmett and Potomac. There have hardly been any studies of wild river otter sounds, so there's still a lot to learn about the noises they make and what they could mean. Emmett, for example, makes a low grunting noise.
Is that sort of grunting and running around because like they're ready to go back in their enclosure?
I think it's a happy sound,
Yeah?
honestly.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of chatting to each other.
I have to admit that after learning about otters fighting with raccoons, devouring an entire pond's worth of fish, and holding poop parties, I kind of thought they seemed like vicious little monsters. But once you see them up close...
Like, what is it about them that makes them
I don't
so
know.
look
Look at their adorable noses.
Oh,
They look like little stuffed animals.
They
You know,
do.
they kind of have like that large flat nose, tiny little eyes.
the tiny little ears.
Yeah.
I was not prepared to be so charmed by these otters.
I think when you see them hunting their goldfish, you'll be, reminded, oh yeah, they're predators as they snag their goldfish and then bite their heads off.
There's a famous line in Jurassic Park.
T-Rex doesn't want to be fat, he wants to hunt.
Well, the same goes for otters. Rebecca picks up a pail of water. Half a dozen fish about the size of my hand are swimming around inside. She walks toward the edge of the pool in the otter's outdoor yard.
So we'll bid them farewell. Thank you for your service, goldfish.
They're like, whoa, this pool's so big.
Yeah, they just
Hey,
got
cool.
dumped into basically an ocean.
We won the jackpot. Where do we go? Then Rebecca releases the otters from their inside enclosure. Like heat-seeking missiles, they bolt into the yard. Here they come. Oh my gosh, he just slid into the water. Oh wow, they can just turn on a dime underwater. Look at him chasing the goldfish.
They're just little torpedoes that push off the side and just keep swimming.
You can see the little white underbellies just kind of flashing through the water there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That counter shading.
Yeah. You do feel kind of bad for the fish, but mesmerized at the otter's hunting skills. Oh my God, he's got two, one in his mouth and one in his hand.
They'll hold one in their mouth, and then sometimes they'll get two or three in their hands, and they'll put them on the side of the pool, and then feast.
Oh my gosh, he's got two in his mouth at once. Oh wow, they are really good at catching these fish.
Oh, yeah, he's like, you just stay up there so I can eat you later.
Oh my gosh, wow, he's arranging his own little meal buffet here on the edge of the pool. Emmett and Potomac have no idea they're giving researchers a unique window into the lifestyle of the elusive otter. But they're helping at a crucial time, because a recent survey found that half of all states are reporting an increase in wild otter populations. It's still not clear what is driving the return of the river otters. Katrina says it could be a sign that steps we've taken to lessen our negative impact on the environment are working. Things like reducing pollution runoff in waterways, or taking a more sustainable approach to fishing.
If they're in a certain area, there is a fish population large enough to sustain the number of river otters that are present there. So that's always a good sign.
Katrina and Alejandra hope their research will show that the presence of otters can tell us about the health of a waterway, that otters can be used as a sentinel species.
A species that essentially could warn us or could be used as markers of the environment.
Otters could be like canaries in the coal mine, but, an otter in the water.
Seeing otters around where you live is a pretty good indication that things are healthy enough to support these animals, which then supports other wildlife.
Back in Delaware, Patty Storms and Morty Bakar have accepted that otters come with the territory. They've even started restocking their pond with fish, snacks, for their local neighborhood otters. And Patty, who's an accomplished artist, even memorialized their backyard guests with a sketch.
I actually gave it to Morty on his birthday as almost an otter apology. Look at me, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but that's all I do. I eat fish. What do you want? Yeah.
What do you expect? Doing what I'm supposed to do.
You've been listening to Side Door, a podcast from the Smithsonian with support